Today we will learn about Tkinter. So Tkinter is used to create GUIs, which are graphical user interfaces that users can interact with. To start off, we must type this out. We need to type out from Tkinter import all. So that asterisk just means everything. So basically what we're doing here is you can think of it as a DLC that we must quote unquote download so that we can actually use it. Right now we don't have Tkinter built in, but as soon as we type this out, then we can use all the modules in Tkinter and actually use them. To start off, we'll create a variable. I'll just call it window for now, and equals capital T, lowercase k, open and closing brackets. So this basically helps you create your first window application. And to run it, you may or may not need this, but just in case you do, you just do retype out your variable. So mine is window and dot main loop, open and closing brackets. So with this, we can actually run and see our window application, which is right here. You can also um, title up your window. By doing that, we'll just do window dot title. So make sure you add in the name of your variable, which is mine is window. Then we'll open a bracket, quotation, then you can name it whatever you want. So I'll just call it window for TK. Along with that, you can also resize your application however you want. Once again, type out the name of your application variable, then dot geometry, and then open bracket again. Then we want to type in quotations. We can choose any size. So I'll use 500 by 500, so 500x 500. So if we were to run this, it should change its size and it should have a different title instead of just TK. And look at that. And for now, I'll just leave it at 250. So now let's learn about widgets. Widgets are used to display text. They can be used to provide a way for users to interact with, or for creative purposes. So start off with the first widget, which is the label widget, which basically help you display texts. So once again, you can name your variable whatever. I will leave it as calling it a label. And then equal. Then you must be very specific in typing the capital L here, or else it will not work as an actual label widget. So now the first thing we should do is type out the name of your main window application. Mine is called window, and you want to add comma. And if you want to add text, we will do text equals quotation. This is a label. Then for the next one, which is an entry widget. With entry widgets, you basically get an input from the user. Once again, name it whatever you want, and it must also have the capital E, or else it will not work properly over here. Then we want to type out the window application variable name. Then here you can either add width, which basically you can manually put to tell you how long you want the entry box to be. Or you can do uh, BD, which basically has a predetermined width size, and instead this will have border thickness, which I will show you later on. So I'll leave it as this for now. And lastly, there is the button widget. For the button widget, same thing as others, capital B for it to actually be a button. Put in the application variable name. And then here, you need to put a text. You can if you want. So you can know which button this is for. I'll just call it button for now. And usually buttons will not work, will do nothing if you just leave it as this. But if you want it to work, we'll add another comma, and usually we'll have a command and equals. Then we'll put in a function here. Well, for now, I'll leave it like this. So there are three ways you can place these widgets onto your window so you can actually see them. Because if I were to run this, you will see nothing, and it will just be a blank application. So if you want to actually see this, there's three ways we can do this. We can either use .pack, but make sure you put in the name of your variable that you want to put, label.pack. And with this, it'll basically stack the widgets below each other. And I'll show you what that means. Entry.pack and button.pack. So if I were to run this now, it should show the widgets. And right there. You can see that since this widget has started first, or it was written before the other two, this would go at the top. So if I wrote the button up here instead, this button widget would be at the top. So that's one way you can place your widgets. Another way is by using grid, and you can do rows and columns. So we can do row 0 and column equals 0. Same for the other ones. You can even change your rows either too. So let's go row 1, column equals 1. And lastly, for this one, we can do dot grid row 0. Actually, this row 2. Let's do column equals 0. So now if I were to run this, it should be in a different placement right there. And you can see this is row 0 and column 0. This is row 1 and column 1. So meaning this thing is the first column. This is the 0th column. And then here is the row 2 and column 0. Lastly, we have the dot place, or we can use our x and y's. Then this one is very, very specific. So I can put this at 0, y equals 0, dot place, x is 100, y 25, place x 50, y 10. And with the dot place is very specific, and right there. So you can see that the button is overlapping with the label widget. And to prevent that, you just have to figure out the spacing for your widgets. But to keep this simple, let's just put in dot pack. It should look back to this thing. So now we have a label, an entry widget, and a button. Right now, I want to have some a use for this button, but right now it's useless because if I press it, nothing happens. To change that, we want to create a function for the button. And make sure you have your function above before your button, or else it'll create an error saying that the function is not there when it actually is there. So let's create it above our button function, our button widget. I'll call it def, just call it button function. And I want to get the input from our user from the entry widget. So there's two ways you can do this. You can either create another variable, so let's call it answer or ans, and equal to entry dot get. So we put in the variable name of your widget entry, then you put in dot get and then those two brackets over there. And then with that, we can, what I want to do is I want to configure the label widget and changing what is inside the text. To do that, I'll do label, the name of your label widget, dot configure, open bracket, and I'll do text is equal to answer. Then if we want to use that, we'll do comma, command is equal to button underscore function. So now if we were to run this again, whatever I put in this entry box should change the label as well. So if I put this is from entry and I click the button, this should also change our label to be whatever we have inputted inside our entry box, like anything, ad. And the other way is you can just simply put in entry dot get and they still will work fine. So again, it would still work the same way. Let's now show you the difference with having BD and width. So with width, it already has a predetermined length, width for your entry box. And when we change it to like 4, it'll change its border thickness. You can see that now it uh, has more depth to it. With width, it'll basically change how long we want our entry box to be. 15, so this one we can go smaller. We can do with 5. Then if I run it again, it's gotten even smaller. You can even increase it by, let's say, 30, and yeah, it becomes this long. So there are those ways to use for your entry. And I want to teach one more widget, which is the frame widget. So with the frame widget, you can either be used to group other widgets together, so it won't be as hard to move them individually when you have too many other widgets, or it can be used for creative purposes where you can have a color. So to do that, we'll do frame, name your variable whatever you want. I'm just gonna leave it as frame for simplicity. Equals, make sure you have that capital F for frame, and then add in the name of your window application. You want to type in the height, so I'll just leave this as maybe 100, and for the width, let's also just do 100. And then we'll do frame dot pack. So then when we run this, oh, You don't see it, but it's right there. But if you want to actually see it, we can also give it a color. And let's do, you can put in either a hex code or an actual name for a color. So I'll just put in a simple color red. Then if I try to run this again, now you can actually see that it is right there. That's the creative purpose use of it. But if we want to use it to group our other widgets together, so it won't be annoying to move them separately, we'll change window from each of these widgets from window to frame, which is the name of the variable of your widget. So I'll leave this as this and that. So now instead of it being stuck to the window application, instead it'll be inside the frame box. I can show you like that. And once again, if I leave it out and put this as window, it will not be connected, or it will not be inside of the box, as you can see. It's not considered inside the widget. And that is all for learning about Tkinter.